This is Inbetween Spaces podcast.
Hey you, I'm blessed on all hands. Welcome back to IBS Podcast, a safe space where we discuss the journey of becoming, the growth, and the in-between seasons. So today's conversation is a reminder that success isn't always what it looks like on paper. If you've ever felt like you are doing something and you know you are doing it right, but it doesn't look like a lot is changing, then this podcast is for you. Our guest today is Chris Meador, a thoughtful leader, and he has a rich background across tech and media with companies like Facebook and Microsoft and NBC as well. He is also the founder of Pivot People and Magnet World. Something I found out, and he's also the co-host of Hot Takes and Cupcake. Very interesting.
Hi everyone. A short break. Please, if you are yet to subscribe to IBS Podcast on YouTube, please subscribe. This would truly mean a lot to me. Thank you very much. And on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well, you can follow, like, and comment. All right, let's get back to the episode.
Chris Meador. Is that the correct pronunciation?
Meador. Meador. Like Meador is better with cheddar.
Okay, Chris Meador.
Meador, yes.
Okay. All right, so let's begin. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you so much for having me. What a pleasure.
Thank you. And I am so grateful, Chris, that you offered to be on this podcast, that you accepted. It's an honor.
Thank you so much for having me. I mean, what a opening, as you explain. And, it's interesting as you share biography of me, but we also talk about this idea of the space we hold or the spaces that we fill, or just thinking about how we perceive ourselves. And it's funny because I hear you talk about someone that I don't always see in the mirror. And so it's a fascinating idea as we kind of dig into this idea of, who we are on paper, who we are in real space, who we are seen as versus who do we want to be seen for, and just all those nuances that come to being a fully functioning human, which I guess is the quest we're on.
Yeah. So if I may ask, what in between season will you say you are in right now?
Yeah, I mean, what a great question, because there's so many. And I think it's also important to, even think about it and for me to find, like, right now when I go to answer a question, how I'm defining the in-between space. And to me, I'm looking at it at that gray space, that connective space between one point to another, that in that change, in that move, when you think about going from one thing to a different thing, and there's this space, there's this change, there's this darkness, like real scary darkness that you go through it. And so you asked me where I'm at. I mean, I'm in this change of, I'm in a lot of changes, it feels like. And when I think about where I'm in between it, I'm in between being someone who sees his value through the paycheck he gets through corporate America versus someone who's starting to define his own value through how he pitches and puts his work out there. The idea of working for someone versus working for myself, that's a big in-between space physically that I'm in, and that then creates a lot of interesting crevices and cracks and micro spaces in between it, in terms of awareness, in terms of self-esteem, in terms of imposter, all those pieces. I'm in the in-between space of just life change of summer. Just summer. And I'm in America right now. So we're in that weird time where the kids aren't in school, and that that sounds like more fun, but there's a lot of changes that are happening. I also, and this is maybe, yeah, go ahead.
I feel like we are in a space, or we've gotten to the era where the future of work isn't really, it's not about working from home working for the office, working for somebody, or working for yourself. I feel like the future of work is getting into zones, into routines that make us who we are, which is where you talked about getting from working from for somebody to getting your own thing. It's more about getting into routines that help our processes. Getting into practical.
Well,
it's okay. Please go on.
No, that's really interesting. No, it's such a great thing, and I think you almost have to separate. Like as you explain that, I think about what you're saying a lot through this idea of what's the future of working. You know, because I think the future of work is what the workplace looks like. I feel like the future of working is how as we as humans are successful in this structure and in this world. And I agree with you. And when I think about, I was very successful in corporate America. Very successful in corporate America. I knew how to navigate it. I knew how to work it. It's because it gave me structure. It gave me routine. It said, you do this, then you do this, then you do this, then you get that. What happened was that guarantee, that structure went away. But as the organization changed, but as a person, I still craved that structure. And what you're saying is one of the first things I say to someone when they make the move towards figuring out this more entrepreneurial journey, if that's where they want to go, which is what's your routine? Like when you waking up, when you going to bed, when are you working, when are you not, how are you reflecting? Like, how are you building that so that you can understand where you are, understand where you've been, and understand where you're going? And that's to me what a routine does.
Thank you. So can I just ask, what's one routine you put into your day-to-day? Something that's outside of work that helps you show up as your best self?
Yeah, what a great, I love that. I mean, I'll talk about the big routines and the small routines, like the tactical daily. So the tactical daily is I make a point just to go outside for half an hour every day. I used to do that because I would walk to the office and so I guess I was outside because I was walking the office, but I wasn't outside. I wasn't looking at the trees. I live in a very beautiful part of America that's very secluded, and just the ability to take in nature. And that's not who I was, not at all. I was not the nature kid. And it's been a very powerful piece, even if it's not a hike, just being outside and taking a breath and being and just that grounding with it is a small thing that I do almost daily now. On a big routine standpoint, I am a caregiver of my kids in a way that I wasn't before. I mean, I've always been an engaged dad, but my wife works in the office until 5:30. So when they come home at 3, I'm managing them. And that has been a big change to my routine, but also that it's been really fulfilling. Like making snacks for kids isn't always fulfilling, but the idea of being present for my kids in a way that work never allowed me to has been incredible. Yeah.
Okay. So let's go back to your early career. What does success mean to you, and has that evolved over the years? What does success mean to you?
Say that word one more time in the beginning. Just repeat that. Do you mind?
Okay. I said, let's go back to your early career, right? What does success mean to you at that point? And over the years, do you think it has evolved?
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's wildly evolved. And I think it's wildly evolved because my values have changed. And I want to be able to have this conversation not through I was wrong before and I'm right now. That's not actually true at all. I was in a different chapter of my life. I actually think we don't think enough about our careers in chapters. I think we think about our careers in arcs. We think about this idea that we start and we finish, and that's going to start. It's going to start here and it's going to finish somewhere up here. And we're going to finish and we're going to go through that. But that's not what careers are. They're these chapters that have ebbs and flows and highs and lows. Some are years, some are truly could be days. So much can change in days. And so I think a lot about the idea of chapters. So when I think about the chapters in the earlier in my career, success was about recognition. Success was about title. Success was about being able to have external reflections of people saying, you did it, Chris. Look what you did. And that's what success was. And it was a very I don't think you ever lose your imposter syndrome, but I had terrible imposter syndrome. No one knew it. I was so gregarious. I'm so gregarious, outgoing. I mask so much of it. Terrible imposter syndrome. And that external validation of my success said to me, yeah, I can do it. And that was really important to me. Part of that, I also define success as the ability to do things that other people hadn't been able to do. And the idea of pushing through and creating and everything there became really important, which differs to today, where I don't care about titles. I don't care about companies. I don't care about that. It's funny. I just want to build. My success to me is being able to build and create and ship to the world and ideate. And it's so funny. It's like early in my career, I was so focused on these titles, which were so important. And now I'm so focused on being able to create value. And that is to me. And then with that, my success just looks very different.
Success for young people, myself example, and people like me that listen to this podcast. Success for us most times can be working at the biggest tech company that you could think of,
That's right.
Getting paid more than the above.
That's right.
Doing innovative things,
I think
getting feedback. So feedback can be so fulfilling. I feel.
Yeah, I never understood that. I love that you just said that. You know, when I was at Facebook, we had posters around the building that said feedback is a gift. And some days I'd go, feedback is a bleepity bleepity gift. This is not a good gift. Or I'd go, feedback is a gift you didn't ask for. Because sometimes it's a gift you didn't ask for. It's always a gift. It's always a gift. Because you just learn through feedback. You know, it's the best thing I learned working at Facebook was how to hear feedback, how to internalize it the right way. Meaning that not all feedback is about you. Sometimes the feedback's about a situation, or sometimes the feedback is the space someone needs to say something that they've never been able to say, and you're the first person to listen to them. Sometimes the feedback is about you. Sometimes the feedback is fair. Sometimes the feedback isn't, whatnot. I think too often we assume feedback is right and we allow it to pierce us like an arrow versus going, there you go. It's a gift. It's a platter of food. What would you like to try? What do you believe in? Maybe none of it's for yours, but you know what exists. You know what's out there, and how do we just allow ourselves to be curious about it?
There are different types of feedback. So most times it's not about you. It can be about the situation. It can be about the product
often.
In particular. Let's say for product designers. So there is a feedback that is being given, and then you take that feedback and you're like, oh, so this is how it should be for every other product. No, every product is unique and specific. So feedback is specific to the situation, the product, or you at that point. This is feedback for you at this.
That's right.
It's not a
That's right.
Thank you very much.
That's right. And that.
Please go.
No, I appreciate that, and it's also the recognition that the whole reason we're here is to grow. That is why we fundamentally in our DNA, we are built to grow. From the minute of conception to even after death, we keep on growing. It's crazy when you think about that. Like, the human body is just built to grow. That's not just a physical thing. That's a mental, emotional work, success, everything that's there. And I'm an external processor. I'm not going to grow just by thinking. What I'm going to do is I'm going to spiral. But hearing feedback from people helps me to understand how I want to grow. It helps me understand what I want to do. You know, what I often what I do for myself and what I recommend to other people is take the feedback and just hold it. And then after a day or so, decide what you want to do. Because again, it's not about, oh, they give me a feedback I smell, I got to go change it. Well, maybe I like the rose cologne I'm using. That's my choice. I've made a choice. So I appreciate that you don't. I hear you. I do. And that's okay.
I mean, that's how I thought at the point when I did it.
Yeah.
So my next question will be, have you ever been at a moment, or have you ever done something right? Deep down, you know you did it right, but you still felt stuck. You felt like it wasn't working.
I mean, yes, that's the human experience right there. There's a lot of different ways I could take this. I'm a big believer that we don't listen to our gut, and that is a lot of the work as a coach that I focus on. It's why I added executive coaching to what I do, is because so much of executive coaching is about listening to what someone says and helping them hear what they believe and know versus being told what to do. Because I fundamentally believe we know what we need. Our body knows, we feel it, but we get in the way of it. And I think about that in terms of like jobs I've taken. I knew taking the job, if I had given myself the space to allow my body to speak, it would have been like, Chris Meador, what are you doing? Chris Meador, don't take that job. Don't take that job. Don't take that job. Don't take that job. And I took it. I told you so. And look, I did it for 3 months. I then moved on to something else because I realized it wasn't right. And like, that is, the thing that I would say is like, I don't know if I wish I'd listened to myself, because I do fundamentally believe each experience matters. And there's a reason you're getting the experience you're getting. There's a reason you're doing what you're doing. And at the same time, I wish I'd gone in going like, Chris, this doesn't feel so good. So how do you want to handle that? Hey, Chris, maybe this is only going to be the next year, and that's okay. And here's what I want to get out of it. I wish I had I knew it in my heart, if I think about it. And so I wish I'd given the space to allow myself to go, well, what does that actually mean? And what's the worst that can happen? And what's the best that can happen? And so that I was walking in with my eyes really wide open versus, navigating with this, like pretending like I didn't feel what was happening. You know what I mean?
Yes. The first part of this was where you mentioned, oh, if you could go back and change the experience, will you still take that job? This reminds me of something I read sometime last year. I need to remember the name of this man. She's a Nigerian tech babe. She's really good. So she said, every experience in your life, the bitter, the sweet ones, the ones that you feel like, oh, this experience shouldn't end, the ones that you feel like, I don't ever want to experience that again, all of them are building you into the person.
That's right.
Building you into the...
Well,
Please go on.
No, they make up... I love that quote. I hope that when you go to share this, or however you share content, you include that quote in the author as well. Because it brings up a lot of things for me, which is, one thing is that the workplace is a microcosm of humanity. There's good, there's bad, there's high emotion, there's sadness, there's success, there's all of those pieces. And there's real, if you look at it that way, there's also real trauma that exists in the workplace. And I don't mean what I would call the big T trauma, because there is big T trauma. There's the aggressions, the microaggressions, the issues, like that's all real. And I want to validate that. I'm actually talking about the more like the little T traumas, which is just the like, when you get fired for a job, you just had your livelihood ripped away from you. And yet then you're asked just to move on the next day like nothing happened. And that happens to people all the time. When you don't fit in a company, and you can feel it and you know it, but you're still kind of like suffering through it, like not happy and showing up, that taking in. That's trauma that follows you. When you have a boss that just isn't great, that just has done some things that don't feel right for you or whatnot, that's trauma you take on. And we don't validate this, because I think sometimes we're like, oh, it's just work. Like, it's not rocket science. We're not curing cancer. We're not doing all this. And we're forgetting that like there's these things that are happening. And how do we create more space to allow us to feel and be humans? And part of the human experience is failure. And failure is great. Failure is the reason we succeed. Failure is the reason that we're able to achieve. Failure is how we know we've done it. And yet too often we think that failure is a sign that it's not possible. And I just think that to me is a thing that like is I hold very close, and it's been a value that I actually didn't realize I always had, but that is something that's become louder, which is that like if you don't do, you can't fail. If you can't fail, you can't do. And so how do you allow yourself that room, that space to fail, and create and make it safer to fail as well? Because I'm not talking like there's smaller ways to fail that actually allow you then to move faster.
Gosh, please. I don't know. I feel like I'm going to play this podcast over and over and over again because you know when you were talking about failure right now, it reminds me of of a lot of things. But you see this point of failure, part of human experience is failure. Failure is not a feeling of it's not possible. It does not mean you can't do this. It just meant at this point you didn't get it right. Try it again.
Yeah. Or you successfully found the wrong path.
Thank you.
Flip it as a success. You discovered that's not the way to do it. So now go discover a different way to go do it. You successfully answered a question. You know, it's to me, I think about this with career searches as well, which is I think everything's about asking yourself a question and then going to answer it. And whether that question is would I be good in X? Well, then go answer it. If the question is, can I pivot my career to Y? Well, go answer it. Go find out. Can I create my own business? Well, how can you go? Well, go answer that. Like, what does that mean? Maybe go talk to some business owners in your area who did what you did, who made the leap. Find some people who weren't successful, ask them about what not, but go answer the question. And I think we don't allow ourselves this opportunity to be vulnerable with other humans, because I think about this as an executive coach, which is I'm not the first executive coach ever to exist on this planet. I'm not the first person to ever start a business. Millions of people have done this before me. So how do I learn from them, and how do I then grow from what they learned and then use that?
I remember having a conversation with someone on this podcast like 6 months ago, and he mentioned that something we don't do so much in the Nigerian space is test products. Test products and features for failure, because most times the investors, when you look at it business wise, most people don't have the patience and the resources to actually test something out in the market, and if it doesn't work, they put it back. So they would rather keep it in the development stage and keep developing.
Yeah.
And keep developing. But the point is, if you keep developing, you are not building a user-centered product. Who are you developing for? Put it out.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work,
I think that is. I'm sorry.
oh, please go on.
No, you're hitting. Oh my goodness, I love this. I love this comment you just made. Like, let's scream it out loud, which is that you don't learn and you can't develop products unless you have people giving you feedback and using them. And that the idea of we can't test is BS. Let's just say that, because because everything you're saying in that is how I used to be, is how I used to feel. It's if I think I'm 45. I've been working for 20 plus years, which is weird because I feel like I'm 22, but that's cool. But I will tell you, like, this idea of perfection was real. This idea of launch, of big production, let's throw a parade, let's have everything perfect and everything, like, let's really like overthink everything and get it out there to the world and then overcharge it, was exactly the way the world worked. That's not how the world develops anymore. You just see it. The world develops in smaller sprints and smaller increments. The world develops through what's something you want to learn, how do you learn it? Great, you learned it. Now what do you do with that information? And we're not talking about learning, we're not talking big, we're talking about like, how do you get someone to log into the app from 9 to 10? Maybe that's your goal. Maybe your goal is, how do I get 5 people to sign up for a wait list? Great, let's go test that goal, because that's going to unlock your next thing you learn. And we just don't, that's how you do it. And this is why the future of development is in the hands of product, because what you're saying about developing is a developer point of view. It's a developer point of view who's an artist. They want to get it right. They have passion. They have belief that their ethos or spirit is right. Because again, the artist is, I trained as an actor. And so the best way I look at engineers and developers as you're artists, and you're building from nothing. You're literally taking numbers and code into experiences. With that being said, we live in a world where being able to create numbers and code is becoming more democratized. There are platforms that now create code for you, and you're going to do it better, but there's platforms that are allowing us. And what we're also learning is all these over UX'd and developed apps people don't want to use. We overdeveloped. And I worked at companies, Microsoft and Facebook. I love both of them, but they overdeveloped. They overthought the features versus learning into what the customer actually needed. And I just think we gotta get back to the customer. And this is why the future is built for product people who understand the customer and can translate the customer needs into product requirements. I mean, they're the ones who are gonna succeed.
Okay, so my next question will be, what's something that looked like failure at a long time ago? Something you did earlier on that looked like failure, but became a major career shift moment for you?
Wow. I mean, good, bad, and ugly. I mean, if we want to go back to what you were saying earlier, the beautiful quote you shared, which is the bitterness and the sweetness. Yeah, I mean, I had a moment in which I got fired for a company for standing up for my team and doing what I thought was right. And also, I did it in the wrong way. And that highly defined where my career went next. I wouldn't have moved into tech. I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for that. The thing that was one of the worst experiences of my life has been one of the most important turns in my career. It's always interesting. In the moment, it was truly, I mean, I was fired, I had a baby, we had all these things. And at the same time, it's what opened the door for me in terms of exploring tech in a real way. If not, I'd probably still be in media and entertainment, which is a hurting industry right now. So that's one right there. Another one, and this is, I mean, this sounds obvious, but it's COVID. Because COVID changed the way I make decisions. It changed the way I make decisions. I'm a pretty complex thinker. I was raised by pretty complex thinkers, so I always had to figure out all the angles, all the ways. I had to make sure, making sure everyone's happy, making sure everyone's connected. It's that's how my brain worked. And COVID made me, I was successful in terms of navigating my life during COVID. We made big moves and big changes because we reoriented our decision making around what's the one thing we need to solve. One. We can look at the other things like whatnot, but what's the one thing we're solving for? And for me, the one thing was, I need my kids to have the opportunity to be happy. We need to live in a place where they have the opportunity to be happy, because I know where we are right now, they don't have an opportunity to be happy. And now I live hours away from cities I grew up in. I grew up in big cities. I live, next door to a farm. I pass cows to take my kids to school. All of these strange things. I'm creating my career in a different way because the type of work that I used to do both is not available. It's also not fulfilling anymore, which is why I'm now an entrepreneur and a coach and all these things that I do. But I had to change my career and all that, and I'm okay with all of that, all of those impacts, because I'm optimizing for one thing, and that one thing is working.
Focusing on what you do. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for being honest and real and vulnerable. I love getting the real
Thanks.
stories of people because amidst young people, like there is always that tendency to feel like people have it all figured out, or oh, someone's life is perfect somewhere. But no.
Yeah. We lost, it's interesting. It's that I'm so grateful to be here because I think we lost the ability to share. And I think we just need to get it back. We just need to get it back. We just need to be just share. Just share. And part of it is that we're in this interesting moment where I think there's an opportunity for it to change. If I think about one thing, is that so I've worked in media and video in digital for a while now. Is that we had our physical self and our digital selves, and they manifested and represented themselves differently. There were things that we would say in person that we wouldn't say online. There's things we would do online we wouldn't do in person, vice versa. And one of the things that we were moving towards this convergence, but what COVID forced was this like explosion against the two together, where folks have to reconcile, well, who are you? Because you're not a digital self and you're not a physical self. You're a self. And who are you, and how do you want to represent, and how do you want to connect? Go ahead, please.
Yes, I'm listening to you. I'm saying, yeah, you are just one person, one self.
You're just one self. And so we're learning right now. I believe one of the things that we have to learn is how to now be that one self and that exist in both worlds. Because I just believe that the internet has such power for good. I just do. It's the piece of having worked at Facebook in the early days that fundamentally believe I've seen what the internet does for the world when it does good things. It's done some bad things too. Humans have done good things and bad things. So let's just remember that. Nothing's gonna be perfect, but it does good things. And I think one of the good things that it can do, it's allowing a middle-aged dude in Western Massachusetts connect with Blessed here, in Africa, talking about the same human truths we're dealing with. Same human truths. I don't understand your life. You don't understand my life. Same truths, same realities. And you and I can share those stories and communicate them, and then recognize them and create that space, because in the end that makes us recognize, oh, I'm not alone, but I also can work through it. And there's other people who understand me. There's other people who see it. And I just think that is this idea of allowing ourselves to share and allowing ourselves that vulnerability. And to what you said, but it's not even just vulnerability. It's just like being honest. This is I'm a middle-aged man in a career pivot. That's who I am. Just who I am.
The entire, it makes up the entire being who you are right now. I remember few months ago I shared one product I worked on that didn't work out well. I'm a product designer, by the way. So the product I worked on that didn't go so well. So I felt a certain kind of way before sharing that. But after sharing it, I'm like, okay, so that product didn't work out well. But the lessons from it have helped me work on better projects. That I worked on that project last year, and God, it was such a dark place to be in. But I got out of it. I worked on other projects, and I worked on other projects, and it is not a reflection of. It is your life experience. It's what makes up who you are as a person, which is something that I
That's
think
right.
our audience needs to have in mind as you are listening to this podcast. Each and every one of your experience, the good, the bad, the ugly, the wonderful, it makes up who you are. It makes up the
does.
It makes up the grit. it makes up your ability to wake up in the morning and decide to do something else. It is not failure.
Yeah. Well, and we pretend, and we were told that, oh, leave that self at home. That's not true. That, like, you can now become a different person in the workplace. And there are some people who are really good at acting at it. I was really good at acting at it. Like, thank God I trained as an actor. I would like go like, today I'm corporate America Chris. There we go. And like, I mean, and figure it out. And improv. I mean, I played a lot of improv in meetings. I'd be like, oh, you tell me what you think product market fit is. You know, and it's like you go, you know, all that. And you know, it's funny. It's like I think so often if I had just, you know, the world wouldn't have existed this way, but I think we are entering this world where instead you can just be like, hey, this is what I want to get out of this. Here's my intent. Here's my clarity. I'm going to communicate that. Hey, this is what I want from this job. Hey, this is what I'm good at. This is what I'm not good at. And so I think about this a lot when you go to interview. You need to be saying where you're great and where you need support, because if in the end the role is more related around the support and they're not going to give it to you, you're not going to be successful. And we don't, and like, just like asking those questions, whatnot, you know, I just think this idea of just allowing ourselves to be humans. We're just humans. We're just humans.
And it's not like there's a roadmap that was given before now. Every one of us is figuring it out. Let me share something my boss told me beginning of last year. I think beginning of last year or end of last year. He said, Blessed, I want you to know that every one of us is still, and everyone is figuring out their own life. It's not like there is one particular thing everybody is figuring out. Everybody is still figuring out their own life. So every time you open
That's
your
right.
mouth to speak from the present, speak from where you are. Don't speak from a place of, oh, this is where I am, it's very small, and I think you are quite here. No, speak, this is where I am. Let the other person speak from, this is where they are. Nobody has
Yeah.
to do that.
Yeah. Great advice. Great advice. It's the in coaching, I really try and coach to the moment. You know, it's the, you know, anxiety lives behind you and in front of you. And it can live in the moment as well, but the past is the fear of repeating, the fear of getting hurt again. It's the flight and fight of what we experienced, and the future is the anticipation of what might go wrong. A lot of times is where our brains tend to go, because again, we're human, we're creatures, we're animals as well. You know, we forget about that. And instead, if you can stay in this moment, if you can stay in this chapter, this is why I talk a lot about chapters, which is in the chapter you're in, and really understand it. Like, spend a moment to be like, what's actually happening in this moment? What is, and like, what is the best that can come out of this? What is the worst? What am I concerned about? What concerns are big? What concerns are just maybe empty balloons that I just need to stay outside and write down? Like, how do you really define that moment so that you can navigate it? And I don't think I think it's scary. It's really scary to look right in front of us. It's a lot easier to look down the road and be like, oh, down the road. It's also a lot easier to look in the rearview mirror. It's really hard to stare in front of you and be like, who's in front of me? But that's where we have to be.
Okay, so my next question will be, in your experience, what do high performing teams really need from leadership beyond KPI and metrics?
Yeah. They need to understand the role that they play. Everyone needs to understand the role that they play in the success of the KPI. Like, so I don't mean like, oh, what are you doing? Are you the one who is building the code that's coming from this over here that's going to be used by a customer to go in that? Great. That is where I am contributing to that right there. And people need to be very clear on that. And be clear and proud of it. Oh yeah, I'm the one who makes sure the kitchen is stocked. Because if the kitchen is not stocked, when folks at 11 p.m. are hungry and on a coding rage, they're not going to get it done. And that's going to be because they needed this. I am helping them to deliver, which delivers code. Everyone has a role. I learned that in the theater. Every role matters, and you got to understand it, and you got to name it in a big way. And then I think you also have to be very clear of what is the upstream, downstream impact of your work. High performing teams understand process. High performing teams understand if I do X, it impacts you in these ways. High performing teams understand that, and they optimize for the team, not the individual. Low performing teams don't care. And so you then have a chain going like, I got it all done. Well, that's cool. No one else did. So what does it matter? So if you can't catch them up, then it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter. You can't catch them up. And so we have to get back to, it's this idea of understanding it. I mean, really it's about high performing team understands the impact of the organism. They understand that if they push this way, the organism will do this or this, and they care as much about what they produce as how the whole organism and organization moves.
That is such a powerful, simple way to that is clear for me. Be specific. What are you doing? Do you stock up the kitchen? You're stocking up the kitchen. Who does it? Whose work does it reflect on? You're stocking up the kitchen. From where do you get it and how do you stock it up? How does it reflect? Process.
Every role matters. Every role matters.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, please go on.
Yeah. No, you go ahead, please.
Okay. So we are gradually coming towards the end of this episode. So I just want to ask, what's your advice to someone who is trying to define success in a noisy, comparison-heavy world?
Yeah. So I'm really excited right now by the potential. I really am. I'm scared of how it can go wrong. I think there's a lot that could go wrong. I can tell you in the last 2 years that I have made a career pivot from, let's call it corporate America, into entrepreneurial, building my own products, building my own businesses, and growing is the real impact that AI is having. And the impact it's having is that it's creating this opportunity for everyone to be a builder and everyone to move at the speed of their desire. And it allows you then to create and to explore. It is going to destroy what jobs look like because it's just fun. And you just think about it, which is like, it's just going to change the shape of jobs look like. And I say that I give that context to your question because I think that we're at a place where what the future looks like, it is so unknown. So unknown. You can say like, I'm going to predict whatnot, but no, because we're living this like real time changes. We're in the middle of this industrial revolution where world is going to change in 5 years. We're not going to recognize it. I'm so excited for it. And so what I would say is, if that is true, if what we said, what I said there is true, what do you want to do in it? Define for yourself what you want to do with it. There's always going to be noise. There's always going to be that. Spend a moment to let the noise be your voice. What is your point of view? What is your thought about the value you want to bring to this world? What are some thoughts you have? Not the answers, not the conclusions. What are just some thoughts? Write them down and use those as your guide. As you then enter the world and the noise starts hitting them, and then let them hold, let them change, let them morph, let them do the things they need to do but spend a moment just to have it. And if I think about it, it's the thing that I know I'm a person of high value and high moral value. And yet I wish I had written down what I valued from work earlier. And I wish I'd then taken moment to then look at that list and go, what has changed, and allowed it to change, and then made decisions based upon that, and continued to pressure test that and work with that. Because in the end, it's not going to be what someone else tells you. It's not going to be, it's going to be what you know and how you guide yourself. Fear's just part of the human experience. If we didn't have fear, we wouldn't. This is a conversation for another day. I'm going to introduce this. Is that I think the same way about anger. They're not actually emotions, they're responses. They're responses to stimuli. They're a reaction to something that has happened. And so if you think about it as a reaction, well, what is your body telling you? What are you feeling? What are you not saying? You reacted. You had a reaction to a stimuli. What is the stimuli? What was your reaction? And what do you want to do with that? The now. That's the now when we talk about the moment. Break that down.
Okay. What are some things you have? Or what are some things or how you want to change the world? Not the process. You don't need to know. You don't need to know this is
Yeah.
you got to connect to this. What are those things? Write it.
Yeah. I think you were asking like what is one thing I want to do to change the world? Did I hear you right?
I'm not asking.
Okay.
I'm reiterating the things you said that really stood out for me. Right.
Got it.
What are the things you want in life? Like I don't need to know. At this point, I don't need to figure out this is how I'm going to do this and do this and do this and end up owning the biggest restaurants. What is that goal? I want to own the biggest restaurants in Africa.
Yeah.
What is the next goal? I want to become the best software engineer in so country. Or why say that?
Great.
I want to build outstanding products that get to set users. Those are goals. I want to have a stable health. I want to have a great health. I want to have a stable income. I want to be so rich. Write it down. Please go on.
So what I love about even what you just said out loud, think about the scale of what was out there. And I think because it does change and differ and a lot. Like there is some truths where it's like you might be at a stage where like I just need to get a paycheck. That's what I need. Great. Then make that your goal. Then figure out what does that actually mean? Break that down. Let's figure that out, all that. Or maybe the goal is I need to figure out how to move into work that's more fulfilling X, Y, or Z. Well, then do the work to define what would you find more fulfilling? What does that actually mean? And because sometimes the fulfilling is the job change. Sometimes the fulfilling is actually rethinking about how you work and saying that like, oh, my job is just a piece of the work I do. I now am picking up side projects because that's how I find the fulfillment in other areas. Like I think too often we look at work to fulfill us, where instead we asking ourselves, well, how could I create this as a fulfilling experience?
Build instructions, build guide, build explanation of what has worked for you. I also like when you in this conversation, you always talked about your kids. I really like that for you.
Oh, thank you. I mean, it's you asked the question, what was the most defining kind of career experience or that defined whatnot? It was having my son, my older son, and then it changed. And I think for me, it took me a lot of years to understand how much it changed me. It took me a lot of years to understand how much it changed. We you and I can have a different conversation about how society doesn't let dads kind of understand this. Like it's just not, it's all broken. It's all broken. And, again, COVID was the great change where, when suddenly I'm sitting in a small apartment with my children with no choice but to be a dad, you made me realize that, like, well, I don't want a dad like this. This is terrible. And also, their happiness means more to me than anything else in the world. And it's just this, like, oh, darn it. It's like, because it's just, and that's just, look, and it's not, I don't, that was my realization. And I'm no better than anyone else. That's just what I realized. I realized that I wanted my kids to have a childhood I didn't. I realized I wanted them to have a parent and a dad involved in a way that mine tried, but worked too hard and worked too many hours and just, did the best he could. That I realized all these things. And that allowed me to understand my value in a different way. So you just were complimenting me, and then I started talking, and so I'm gonna stop. And I'm sorry about that, but I appreciate you saying that, because there's nothing more important to me than my kids and my family.
There are a lot of lessons to pick from here, so because the thing is, most of our audience base are young people that are in the career space and that have dreams of not just living, not just being there. They have reason, or they have dreams of growing in their career. They have beliefs of having a balanced life.
That's right.
They don't just have to chase their career. So I just want to say,
and you have to work for it. You have to work for it. Let's be really clear, which is that it is easy. I'm sure there are people who are going to watch this who go, well, there are privileges that Chris has had that allows him to achieve these things, and this isn't achievable for me because I haven't had those privileges. Yeah, and there is truth there. There's absolutely truth there. I'm not gonna deny that. And at the same time, I've worked my ass off to find this value and to live this value, and it is hard as heck because it's not a value up to this point that has been valued by the workplace or in decision making or everything that's there. And yet I know it's right. And so I'm going to live it. I'm going to push it, and I'm going to make decisions built around it. And I think that's the conviction. I've done the work to know that my conviction, rock solid. I don't actually question it. I just live it. And I think that we don't, like, that's where I say to other folks, just, like, be clear with yourself of that value you want to give, and then set that achievable next step to get there. Maybe that next step is, well, I just need to get a job that pays me consistently. Great. Get that next step. Then once you get it, ask yourself the question, what's my next step after that? Maybe your next step's different. It doesn't matter, but you can meet where you are and still start thinking about how you want to live your value in a way that allows you to live your life. I fundamentally believe this.
Thank you. Something we've heard clear and loud today in this podcast is you have to define your values. So is not a definition of who you are. Here is okay. At the workspace, define clearly what your work values are. Understand the industry you are in, understand what they play by. Get specifics. Is a connection. Who does your work impact? Who does your pushing pixels every day, pushing squares and circles? Who does it impact? How do you do it? Be specific. Be intentional. It's all about building the life you want, and it's okay if some things don't work out. Something he said loud and clear.
That's exactly right.
Something's not working out.
That's exactly right.
It's not just a reflection of, oh, I can do it better. It can also be a thing of, oh, this is a door this is a door I should not go through. Can I try other doors? It's okay to try other doors. So I do
absolutely right.
I do hope this podcast has helped you one way or the other today. I do hope you have the best rest of your day, rest of your week. And thank you so much, Chris. It's a great honor to have you here. Do you have any last words to say?
Thank you for creating this space. Thank you. it is, you know, you don't create change without conversation. You just don't. And you can have the conversation. So thank you for creating this. And I'm just this was a lot of fun, and I appreciate your thoughtfulness and your care, and just really, you know, I saw your values in how you asked, and I love that. And so thank you so much for showing me that.
Thanks a lot. I look forward to sending you a draft of this once it's ready. Thank you very much. This is In Between Spaces podcast, and my name is Blessed Onoha. On the podcast today, we had Chris Meador, and he shared the in between stories, the things nobody tells you about career and success. It is such a great honor. Thank you for listening. Till next time. Bye, everyone.